Welcome back to the channel. So another tough loss in 4 days. It hurts. It sucks. Am I surprised? Not really. Am I mad that they couldn't stop getting penalties and getting in their own way? Yeah, I am. But like I said, it's too many penalties. 14 is way too much, and they put themselves in bad spots. Once again, I can make the excuse of no receivers, injuries, what have you. But if I'm being reasonable, it's also the coach not helping them out too. So one game against the NFC South opponent is in the books in prime time against the Bucks. Now moving on to the Saints, who are now 5-6. They're banged up and playing either Trevor Siemian or Taysom Hill. Who knows? If this game was a month ago, I'd be pretty confident. But since Cowboys started to skid a little bit, it's hard to tell. And like I said, anything is possible. And I can't put anything past the Cowboys or the Saints. Now, good thing is they might have some help coming back. And it looks like I'll have some help tonight on the podcast once again. So to introduce a special guest, it's my guy, Dan Ruppert. Dan, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Just finishing work on a beautiful Tuesday night. Just getting on here, doing a little football talk.
Sounds good, man. I know I butchered the last name. It's Rupert.
Yeah,
we just talked about this.
It's all good. Really, it's okay.
Man, it's been a rough week for you, huh?
Man, I don't even want to talk about Ohio State. Nope. We're not going there.
You sure?
No, yeah, I'm positive. I don't want to talk about it at all. In the least. Yeah, that was harsh. But hey, I'm having a better week than the Sooners are, so I'm okay with it.
Hey, man, sounds good, man. So for those that don't know about you, man, tell them, because I know you're one half of the 40 podcast of Massey who was trying to be here tonight but couldn't make it. Just tell us about you, man. Tell us about the podcast, where to find you on Twitter, and a little bit about your Cowboys background, man.
So, man, my Cowboys background. I've been following the Cowboys since 1978 was the first game I remember watching. Right, long time ago. But when I was a kid, I found out that Tony Dorsett and I have the same birthday. I sent a card off. I got one of those like stamped, generic birthday cards back from the Cowboys, and ever since I was a Cowboys fan. And so watching the team, I majored in journalism. After I was in the military. After my time in the military, how do I put this? Like, essentially, I have been watching the Cowboys, getting into journalism, writing about the Cowboys, and I've now been covering the Cowboys for Fansided for about 10 years now. It's almost been about 10 years. It's been a minute, right?
Long time.
Yeah. And then for a while, I was also the Buckeyes Wire writer for USA Today. I wrote on there as well for a little while.
Oh, man, that's cool. It's real cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. So a couple of news and notes. And by the way, before I forget, so how can we find you on Twitter, by the way?
Oh, yeah. I am at Dan_Rupert, RUPPERT.
All right, guys, it's Dan Rupert. And once again, you guys can find me on Twitter at SDQ Flight Crew, and I'm LP Cruz. With my guy, Dan Rupert, tonight, talking about this Cowboys game versus the Saints. Before I do that, though, just to kind of get through it, man, we got a lot of news and notes coming out in the last couple of days, actually last 24 hours. So starting off is we have Mike McCarthy out with COVID. Dan Quinn will step in as the head coach in the meantime. Tristan Hill is now out for 2 games after suspension. What are your thoughts on these things going around, man? Just kind of give me your quick summary of that.
Quick summary, look, does Tristan Hill, after his history, deserve a suspension? Yeah, probably, right? He's had a little bit of a history. You throw the punch, I get it. What I think everybody's really upset about is it is definitely not equal across the league on punishment. So for me, maybe a game, okay, I would have bought that. But 2 games plus the fine when we have on tape, I just don't agree with it. So, it is what it is at this point, right? McCarthy having COVID, look, it was bound to happen. It was at some point, some team was going to get hit. We happened to be it. I was not surprised that they used Quinn on a short week. People were screaming for Kellen Moore
Mm-hmm.
on a short week. You don't want that to be his first outing, right? Essentially a 3-day prep period. Give it to a coach who's done that, but is still willing to let the offensive coordinator run his game. And Quinn fits that. So, the Cowboys have been, snake bit, but it looks like they got some help coming back.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it. I mean, honestly, I'm okay with it. I think I'm okay with it. As
Mm.
far as Tristan Hill goes, I get it. I think it's excessive. I mean, you throw a punch, fine, but I've seen games in this
Right.
league. I've seen Sherman get socked by Trent Williams after a game, no punishment. I've seen Joey Porter jump Levi Brown in Vegas, and
Yep.
he got fined, but he didn't get suspended. Like it's like you said, it's inconsistent. It's not really it's fair across the board. As far as Dan Quinn goes, man, I think you're right about that. I think in the conventional team sense, that's the right thing to do. Give the guy with the most experience, let him do it. And it's also, it does protect Kellen Moore as well. You know how we talk about this online with people just wanting Kellen Moore so bad to be the coach and replace McCarthy no matter what happens after this season. I think that's the best thing you could do. It's not to create a controversy either. It's not to kind of make things harder for Kellen Moore. Because if you do trust Kellen Moore, you like Kellen Moore, you want him to do well, genuinely, it's not the right way to do it anyway. It's kind of doing right by the coach. So I think you're totally right about that. And then the flip side with Quinn, I think it's good for him to be up close now, see what's going on. Because the last few weeks with this kind of decision making and play calling on third down, it hasn't been great. So I think he has to kind of see his guys up close, understand what they're doing. On top of that, man, one thing I want to point out to you, I think we talked about this too, is that they're going to have a lot of responsibilities divvied up amongst the staff in his absence from McCarthy, I should say. And I think that's the thing that tells me, hey, Mike does a lot more than you guys think. So I think that's a great thing, man.
Yeah, I got into this conversation with somebody the other day. They were like, "Oh, coach just kind of controls everybody." I'm like, "No. There is so much more." And I tried to break down like everything a coach does. Man, that short week, give it to the guy who kind of understands how to put that together. He understands all the pieces and all the little responsibilities and meetings, and they have to go meet the scouting department, then they have to go meet defensive coordinator, and then they have to they have all these things they got to do. Giving it to the guy who already knows how to do it. Quinn has been there, he's been a head coach. Right move.
I agree. Like you said, it has a lot of things going on. Have your head spinning from one guy so young to kind of step in for Kellen Moore. But tonight, Dan, like I always do, is I like to have just to talk about the matchups where I start off with the Cowboys defense versus the opposition's offense, and we'll go there step by step, bit for bit. Sounds good with you, right?
Absolutely.
All right, man. So, for those listening, man, just kind of briefly talk about the Saints O-line and tell me, is that Saints O-line as good as it's been in the last few years?
No. The simple answer to that is no. They are not as good as they've been the last few years. They're not a bad offensive line, though. So make no mistake, this isn't the same O-line from, 3 years ago with Breeze at the helm and, it was motoring. This is a little different of a line. It's just a little different, different schemes, different everything, right? Not just player wise. So it's still good, but it's not they're just going to absolutely maul our defensive line. It isn't that. But they're pretty good. I'd say they're probably top 12.
So for what we're hearing that we get Tank Lawrence back this week. That's the word. If that happens, what is your plan with Micah Parsons? Do you do anything different considering you have one half of your starting D-line group, defensive end group?
So I think it a little bit depends on who's playing quarterback.
Okay.
Right, because Simeon is a different quarterback than Hill is. And so if you're going to put Simeon back there, I think you use him as you've been using him to add to that pass rush, to kind of bolster that line a little bit, because Simeon doesn't move like Hill, right? So now if you're talking Hill's in, let Micah with the speed cover side to side on him, do that spy almost on him, and you have a guy that can do that with Hill. Pretty much shuts Hill down if he can't stay mobile. So I think it really depends on the quarterback.
Because the way I thought about it was this: if let's say you get Tank back, and let's say it's Hill, or it's Simeon, I kind of don't care really. Here's why I say it: I kind of don't care because one, can both quarterbacks beat you from the pocket? Can either one do it? If they can't do it, I really don't care. But I thought about moving him back to linebacker more because let's say they have Kamara back. let's say they have Kamara back and he's playing. I'm not happy with our linebackers playing in space and tackling as far as Count O'Neal, Vander Esch. Let me get Micah to do what I know he can do. Hey, look, see that guy, hit that guy. Simple as that. Let's limit the big runs after the catch with Kamara, and I'm cool with that. And just because I'm moving on to running backs, man, real quick, do you think, let's say he doesn't play, do you think Mark Ingram is anything more than just a guy at this point in his career? Is he something that we should watch out for, account for? No, he's just a regular guy.
No. Like, he's just a guy, but a guy with intelligence, right? So he sees things a little differently. He understands what he's looking at a little differently, right? Yeah. It's like we always say with like the older players, they adjust their game. Well, Ingram has pretty much adjusted his game. And so you worry about him just because he has that on his side. But no, I don't think you have to worry about him like you would have to with Kamara.
I think, that's in my problem with this team is too, depending on what they're given. And I know I think news broke today also that we lose Brent Urban for the season. Mm-hmm. It's how they tackle. For me, it's all about the guys up front, how they tackle. If you have Taysom Hill, you had to defend the run option, like you said. If it's Ingram, it's the same thing, man. I just worry about how they defend the run. And so that means for me, like, look, your inside better be ready to play. So no Urban. Do we get more Bohanna? Like, what's your fix that fixes running defense? Because they weren't that great last week either. How do you kind of address the run defense?
They're going to have to do more run blitzing in general. And try to your point, use Micah, right, to hit those gaps really nicely. The other question is really who sets the other edge, and I think that's really a problem that they are still addressing with Randy. When Randy and Tank were both out, right, that was part of the problem, is their backups were not setting edges very well, right, and they were getting blown off, and I think that's a piece of it, right. So, man, I get what you're saying. Throw Parsons back there. That might be your best bet, but you might lose an edge over it, right? Like that's the two sides of the coin.
I think that's you said piece, right? Like that's the problem. With this team, it's been so much of fracturing and piecemealing things together, just trying to throw it together with sticks.
Right.
That's the main problem. But again, I think with the Saints, if you have to play the Saints, and they're not the same O-line that we've become accustomed to. It's not Jari Evans there, those big guys from before. Mm-hmm. You want to take away their early down runs anyway and say, look, man, 3rd and 7, 3rd and long, go ahead and beat me. Whether or not, I don't have the edge players to stop the run as much on both sides. I still want to say, look, try to beat me. Let me get Micah Parsons. And I know fans want to see Micah rush the passer, and he's effective that way. But I think with this team is you have to get off the field on 3rd down. That's been a big problem with them, not getting off the field. And just in general, the penalties are killing them no matter how you look at it. So limiting big plays and putting your best player on defense, in my opinion now, to just kind of get you off the field. That's the objective either way, right? Like you want that guy to help you get off the field, and they need extra possessions too. So that's my take, man. Just how I would do it.
It's not helping that Neal isn't what we thought he would be, and that Cox is not here, right? Because you lose some of that speed that you thought you had in the linebacking core to help with that, right? Which would have maybe made this decision easier. Unfortunately, that's gone. That's not working, right? So this is why this decision is so hard, because you're making up for a lack of speed by using him, right? Like that's the puzzle that, you have to figure out. I don't know,
it hurts, man, because it looks like they had to play big nickel no matter what. That's not a good thing either, man. I don't want to put Donovan Wilson down there, man, or Jaron Kearse down there. Say, okay, look.
Wilson might be out now too. Excuse me, not Donovan Wilson. Cedric. Wilson. I saw Wilson. I was like, oh crap.
Don't do that, man. Don't do that.
Sorry. Cedric Wilson. But yeah, man, I don't know how this is the problem where the Cowboys are at with their injuries. This is the problem the Cowboys are at right now as the roster is. Hopefully before you get some of these guys back, is you have to pick and choose which level a team can beat you on because they're missing some guys, right? So they pick and choose, and lately they haven't picked right. So I don't know. I mean, that's the best way I can kind of state it, I suppose.
I mean, the way you break it down seems like we're not lucky, but we're happy to be at 7-4 at this point because it seems like with all that they're missing on the defensive side, that's a big part of it. So,
Correct.
um, now I'll talk about this
Things they
part.
thought they had, they don't have.
Right.
Right. So they
Right.
thought they had a really good number two, or at least a really solid number two. Don't get me wrong, he hasn't been awful as everybody wants to believe, right? But you haven't seen Nashawn Wright's out now. You haven't seen, Boss Man out there. You haven't seen, you see what I'm saying? So like what they thought they were going into the season with, they haven't.
We're talking about Anthony Brown, right?
Yeah.
Anthony Brown. Okay. And that's a perfect segue, man. You brought me to my point. So I'm going to move on to the receivers and tight ends. So wideouts and tight ends. So this group, like I said, it's probably messed up for me to say this, but they feel like they're watered down. No Michael Thomas. They seem to be a little bit watered down without Michael Thomas. I'm going to go with Marquez Callaway because I think he's a pretty good player. But outside of him, or if you got Marquez Callaway, what tight end or receiver you think gives you any problems against our guys, meaning Anthony Brown? And mind you, Anthony Brown and Jordan Lewis weren't too good last week. What guy do you think says, okay, he might be a problem?
So honestly, tight end, right? Griffin. So
I mean, more. I don't know about this guy.
Okay, so it's not that I think he's this fantastic player. It's just I think if they're going to figure out how to beat the Cowboys, they're going to have to try to run things up the seam, right? Behind the run, get Micah out and try to run up the seam. The only guy that they have that can do that isn't a running back is their tight end. So that's who I would look for, because usually when the Cowboys have games like this, it's always a weird person who comes out of the woodwork, right? You're like, who the heck is this guy catching, 7 balls for 180 yards on us? I think that this game sets up like that.
Well, you said down the seam. So knowing that, like I said, either guy, whether it's Simeon or Taysom Hill, and that's all Taysom Hill does well, throw down the seam anyway. That's his bread and butter, is his, read option fake, down the seam. I mean, I can see it. I mean, there's guys like you said, him. I was thinking about Juwan Johnson, maybe Harris if he's healthy. I haven't heard anything about Harris, though. He was appealing his suspension, and I've heard nothing about that.
Nothing.
So he's probably out, it looks like.
Yeah. He hasn't. I don't think he's been practicing. Yeah, I don't think he's been practicing.
So they had no speed threat, it sounds like. No deep speed threat on the field.
I mean, just watch the last couple of their games. You can see it,
It's all constricted, where it's like everything is short.
Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, that plays in the favor for the Cowboys. And the last thing I want to talk about as far as the offense goes is the quarterback, right? And let's just talk about focusing on Taysom Hill. And I get it. He's getting first team reps now. He's signed the contract. Just tell me, just so I understand better. What the hell does Sean Payton see in him to do all this? Like, why?
I think he thinks Taysom Hill is what he thinks Dak is. I don't know. Like
crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he had a different plan thought he would be further along in development. I don't know. It baffles me. It's not that he's awful, right? Like he's not some awful player. He's just a guy. He's just a guy, right? Like I like players who can give you some versatility, right? And he does that. He has some speed to him. Okay, he does that. Can he be a little bit of a weapon if I'm a creative offensive coordinator? Yeah, I could do that. But to tell me you're going to sign this guy to be your starting quarterback, man, I'm not buying that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no. Yeah. So I can understand the gadget thing, but you weren't using him enough to make it worth this money that he's getting previously. And then you went, man, I just stop. Like, I don't know what he's thinking.
You know what it actually reminds me of, man? Because you watch football for years. It reminds me of when any team has a guy that's a good returner, like Josh Cribbs, Devin Hester, and the team has to pay the guy a bunch of money to keep him around. And then when you pay the guy, you have to justify why he's still making all this money.
Yep.
So it's like it's the same thing. Like you had Devin Hester playing receiver, it never panned out. Yep. Like it wasn't a thing. Like you're trying to do all this. Like $95 million for gimmicky results to me makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah. So like, I mean, I get it. Like I said, the red zone thing makes sense. The short yards thing makes sense. And even I get it. Like, look, let's say they get down the red zone. And I know we played bad against Mariota on that one play. If that's their thing, okay. You can sell me that. Yep. But if let's say, for example, we're stopping them on the run, first down, second down, or they get holding calls or whatever happens down there. I know this crew we have is flag happy too with the refs.
They, especially the Cowboys.
Well, I mean, hey, you know what it is, man. But let's just say, for example, it's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. You got Taysom Hill back there. You're not running this option. You're not running the ball on 3rd and 7. So exactly what do you do at this point? Because it's like, look, Sean Payton might be trying to just prove something to everybody else, like Bill Belichick is doing with Mac Jones, and he has a point to prove or something like that. But I just don't understand how you make this a viable threat. Honestly, if I'm the Cowboys defense too, and Dan Quinn calling his defense, I still don't see why I should be worried if you want to insist upon Taysom Hill. It just makes no sense, man. I don't get it. I don't know what they're doing.
And essentially, you play both quarterbacks slightly differently. You contain Hill more than you rush Simeon. I mean, that's it. Like, that's the game plan. Oh, we'll just switch it up depending on who they decide to start. Not for $95 million.
No. It makes no sense. And even like I said, if you were to take at this point, this is my mind. If let's say you want to be creative and play both of them on the field at the same time, you're then removing either Kamara off the field, maybe a tight end, maybe he's your tight end, so that makes more sense, or a receiver off the field who's more capable as a receiver than he is. It just seems like a lot of maneuvering to fit one guy and be part of the system. I don't understand it one bit.
Now I'm supposed to be worried about him to be the starting quarterback. Right. That's not happening either, right? I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, it makes again, man. I thought you might have a solution for me or an explanation, but it seems like we don't have any for this one. It just makes no sense.
Maybe a Saints fan might know. I've asked a lot of people actually this question. No, like seriously, I've asked people this question, and nobody has really ever given like a full answer of like what people saw in them. Like nobody can figure it out. And I have a Saints friend who I work with, and she started coming out with some like, well, yeah, he has the arm strength and he can make the throws, but they're trying to do this dual, threat thing with him. And I'm just like, yeah, no, but you're not, but I didn't want to say that to her. So only a Saints fan would know the answer, apparently.
That's terrible, man. All right, so let's move on then. So the fun part for me, our offense versus their defense. Now, my first question to you is, and I get it, he's out for COVID. I understand it. Why are they so insistent to play Terrence Steele over La'el Collins? And before you give me a Jones answer, give me a legitimate football reason why they're doing it. If you can give me a actual football reason.
No, actually, I can't. Think about the last time La'el really played a full game. End of 2019.
Yeah.
And we've asked him, he had surgery, weight stuff last year, comes back in this year, gets injured, like COVID, all of this. So when was the last time he was truly in football shape?
2019.
And what year is it?
2021.
So there's your football reason. Yep, there's your football reason. We all remember La'el when he's La'el, when he's on and he's mauling people on the right tackle, right? And what we wanted to believe, and none of us ever even thought about it, was that he would step right back in and be that same guy after 2 years out of football.
I get it. I get it. I understand it. Now, the football side to me says, okay, maybe, and I'm not the best person when it talks to O-line play and what it looks like. I'm not a pro at this, but I do understand the other part, the Jones part. And I know what a Jones move looks like. Yeah. And to me, it's like they're trying to convince themselves of Terrence to save some money. And it's not the way to do it. Like even last week, I saw the game last week. There's a film cut up where he got blown off the ball, driven backwards into Dak Prescott's legs. That could have been the season right there.
Yep.
The week before that in KC, he's late off the snap and it forces a fumble. It's a lot of stuff going on with him that you're upset about. So if it's a football thing that you're mad about, then watch the guy who's playing football right now. It's not good. And it seems like COVID had to force their hand. Imagine that. COVID had to force their hand this week so that he doesn't play. Because look, if they get guys like Marcus Davenport back or Cameron Jordan, it's a problem. So why risk QB1 for financial gain? I don't get it, man. I think it's petty. I think it's stupid and it's flat out dumb. Just what I'm saying.
It could be. I mean, they were mad at the COVID thing. I bet you they handle it differently than with Amari, though. They were mad at him. Yeah. They were mad at him. I get it. Could it be a money move? Yeah, I think it could be, but it probably is a mixture of both. When you really think about it, it's probably like, hey, he's not quite there yet, this gives us a reason to try to make a money move, right? So it might be because, oh, he's not ready. Let's see if we can't save a buck over here, right? So I think it might be a combination of the two.
Can I take that logic and apply it real quick? So let me take your same logic and flip it on its ear. I don't believe that he's your swing tackle next year. So let's say it's a money move. Let's say you're trying to save some money. I don't think that Terrence Steele could beat out Josh Ball, if we're being honest. So then what's the point? Why would you shoehorn a guy as your right tackle if you know in your heart of hearts he couldn't beat out the guy you just drafted this year who hasn't played yet? It's a lot of things with this offensive line.
But you have to remember who runs the entire bank, to your point, which is Stephen Jones, right? And we know Stephen spends money on certain things he shouldn't and doesn't spend money on things he should, right? It happens. We've seen it happen repeatedly with him, right? I'm like, Jalen, all of those contracts that everybody questioned, right? And everybody was like, why are you doing this? This is not the right move. So, you're right, but this feels like a move where he's worried about cash for maybe a Michael Gallup, or he's worried about cash for maybe keeping Jaron Curse, whatever that is. There's something else that's pulling that budget string, right? Because that's the way he moves.
If true, explain the thing with McGovern and Williamson, because that's the part I don't get. If it's a cash thing, why are we playing this whole musical chairs game with those two guys? Because before, with this one guy, it's like, okay, well, he's bad. You got to bench him. You finally play the guy you want, and he doesn't have a good game either. What do you do now? So it's like, is it money? Is it performance? And now it looks like it's money over performance, and I'm not with that, man. At least not with the O-line and the quarterback. That's my problem. Like, you're not protecting your franchise.
Right. And that's been the question of the last, however many years with Stephen Jones at the helm of the bank, right? Why were we skimping here? Like, look at what we did to wide receiver for years, right? Until they were just like, oh, we need an actual wide receiver, and they went and got Amari. They kept trying to sell us, two number twos. Yeah, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna make the play. No, we're not gonna make the playoffs, right? So, yeah, I think it's just the way they do it is he figures out what he can and can't live with, and when he makes a mistake, that's when he corrects, right? And I don't agree with it.
The wall. Yeah,
but you're
the wall, and we'll fix it.
But we're all fans. What do we do? Right? Like, that's the problem. You watch, and I get it, but like, man, it sucks. Like, you just want him to like start learning as he goes. Because how many times have we all said, why are you doing this? No, what are you doing? Or stop, or you need to do this. I don't know. There's nothing we can do but sit back and watch.
All right, man. So I got one last O-line question, I promise. Then we'll move on from O-line. Do you have any concerns about Biotish this week against a guy like David Onyemata? How do you feel about that matchup?
No, I've had concerns about Biotish for most of this season. Like, he's had a couple moments here and there, but he's been real shaky this year. So yeah, I do worry about him. It helps that you have Zach Martin there. But yeah, I would put Williams in at this point, put him back in at left guard. He may be getting the penalties, but you know what? If you look at McGovern's ranks, he would qualify dead last in pass block win rate and run pass win rate. Bottom of the worst offensive line graded in the league.
In both.
Yeah, McGovern, yeah.
And so in both categories.
Yes. Yeah, he would have ranked dead last if he had enough snaps.
See what I mean? It's like you're handcuffing your quarterback, and then when it doesn't work out, oh well, look at the quarterback. It's a lot that goes on, and I think a lot of the choices they make, it tends to affect everything. And it's hard to spot if you're not really astute to notice it. It's hard to spot it.
Right. So when you go back to your Biotish question, yes, I worry, but it isn't just him I worry about. It's the fact that I worry about him, and oh, by the way, now I'm worried about this guy as well, right? So when you have two players that you're worried about, so I'm definitely worried about Biotish. how he can hold up, and hopefully they slide Zach that way a little bit, and Lyle can hold that right better. Then you won't have that problem.
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a risky shot, man. But all right. So I'll move on
Yeah.
from that. So I got a two-part question here.
Mm-hmm.
And the first part of it is, how good do you think these Saints linebackers are? And despite what Jones said today about Zeke, should this game feature and focus on Tony Pollard? Your thoughts?
Ooh. So we'll just go to the linebackers. Yeah, I mean, I think they have really solid linebackers, right? I don't think that they're a bad group. I think they're probably a little softer on the strong side than the weak, I would say, but they're a good group, man. Like you're looking at Alexander, Werner, Davis, Ellis. Yeah, that's a pretty solid group, but I'm not shaking in my boots over it.
So, okay. Tell me before I go in, tell me your second part with Tony Pollard.
Okay, Zeke. Oh yeah, Zeke and Pollard. So, man, I'm with Pollard. Like I'm not going to make him a bell cow necessarily, because I don't think Pollard can hold up for a true bell cow experience. But yeah, I'm going heavy Pollard this game for sure.
Okay. And I think I'm with that too. First of all, I do think the linebacking core, actually the whole defense from every level, that's a good defense. From
It
the
is.
D line, if
Mhm.
they're healthy, that's a good unit. But I think it has to be Tony time. And the reason why I say it is that you may sacrifice some in pass pro, and we all worry about the pass protection. And I get it. I understand it. But this is why you had to play Lyle Collins to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need the continuity of your own line. So to have a guy like Pollard, I could just say, okay, look, leak out 6 yards. I mean, if you look at the numbers, he gained 6 yards per touch. Per touch. And I don't mean kick returns, I mean 6 yards per touch. Whether I
Yeah.
hand it off to him, I dump it off to him at 6 yards. Guaranteed, that's what he's doing. And I know I'm backtracking, talking about this before, but I know when they were without Lamb and Cooper, the coaches also bugged me out too, because when you had that equalizer, you never used them. You were on the road in KC, none of your receivers were healthy. Didn't bother to change that up. Didn't use the guy more. I don't get it. And it's almost like, and if I'm being unfair, let me know. But it's almost like you're doing the exact opposite with Steele as you're doing with Pollard. You don't want to maximize his touches. And again, you talk about the money, right? And I'm thinking in my head, we would call Marion Barber, right? They paid Barber.
Yeah.
He got hurt a little bit, got banged up, and as the carries went up and the miles went up, his production went down. And so back then, as a fan, I had to justify and rationalize a bad contract because you ran your guy into the ground. I don't want to do this again with Zeke, because Zeke's a good player still. He's still a good player, but it's like we're getting to that part of him trying to explain why he's not playing well, or why he's struggling, or why he looks slower than the other guy. Take care of your guy. Let him
Yeah,
rest.
but like people have this idea that Zeke was this absolute burner. I mean, he was a fast dude, but let's not
He was.
mistake it. He wasn't, maybe his first year, right? Like after that, he kind of wasn't, right?
Mhm.
Because he needed to be the bell cow. He needed to, he put on weight. We all know that, right? That was the big famous pictures going around. Um, I think he had to realize, like, okay, if I'm going to take this abuse, I need to add some size. Now he slimmed out this year, but that's my worry with what they're trying to do with Pollard, right? If that's what you're going to move to, are you just setting yourself up to have it happen again? Because now Pollard will have to gain weight, right, to be the bell cow. Slow him up, he gets injured. Like running backs are just that position. Like they're
Mhm.
just that. Can you justify a second contract? I think they keep Zeke, but if they don't, it would be like maybe 2 years from now. Um, I think they hold enough value in him and what he can do. I think it'll be 2 years or so.
Can I ask a question of quality versus quantity for just a second?
Mm.
So, all right. So I was having this convo last week after the game, after Oakland, or I'm sorry, Las Vegas. And it wasn't for me about the volume that came to Pollard. It's not about how much he, like the carries and the plays. It's not about that or the touches. It's how you're using them, for example, right? You and I both
Yeah.
watch the games and we see, okay, this is a nice little screenplay. The guards are out front. It should be blocked up pretty well. But the play is being ran to Zeke, not Pollard. Where if it's Tony, maybe 10, 12, 15 yards. Or going into the game with Las Vegas, I said, look, you should run the ball to the outside on the edge. Outside zone could be great. I see it's Zeke, not Tony. My problem is that you're using a great player, or I'm sorry, using a player that's explosive, but not in the right ways. And it's like you can do this a lot better to help the guy out. Am I just saying something that I don't? Like, am I just tripping here? Like, tell me, am I bugging out? Because it seems like it makes a lot of sense to just use that guy that way versus the other way.
Yes, you would think. You know, it's funny when if you ask a team about explosiveness, right? Pollard is definitely going to be the more explosive of the two players, right? That's probably what they're going to say. The question will be is it because how you're using him and that he's not a full-time person, right? Is that helping the fact that he's, this weapon that you can use when people aren't expecting him? There's that piece of it. I don't, people way smarter than me study this piece of football, but like for me, I think you would use him differently, but I still might keep Zeke on the field at the same time, right? Like, so you're spreading out the defense essentially now with somebody who's explosive, kind of like Tariq Hill does, right? And utilizing him in that way. So I wouldn't, traditional running back, maybe not, but as a more complete weapon, I would definitely use him a lot more.
Yeah, man, I think it's gotten to the point where if you need a play, you got to play in the back of your mind, a screen or something like that. I'm like, just toss the guy out there. Toss the guy that makes somebody miss in space, take off for 40 yards and just go. I think you just, again, it's not about the opportunities to me. It's not about being, the cutting Zeke in 2 years or whatever. It's it's about preserving Zeke. If you want to preserve Zeke, by all means, use the guy more in situations to make him look better. Again, if Tony Pollard, goes down for 40 yards on a screenplay, that's less time for Zeke too. That's less carries for Zeke also. So it's about preservation of the guy you've already paid and using the guy that you have not paid or may not want to pay. That's just the way I'm trying to explain it, that way.
Which running back would you rather have pounded at the one on a draw play, Zeke or Pollard, right? But you have to get down to that one to allow that play to happen. So that's kind of your point, is like if you use Pollard in between there, Zeke shines when it comes in to get that burst, hit the hole, break a couple tackles, and carry that 4-yard thing that you need. Fantastic at it. Yeah.
Wasn't it the same thing with Felix and Marion Barber? That was the same thing, right?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Same idea. Yeah. And
so
if you notice, both lasted pretty decently, so that's what you're saying here is use Pollard more in space in between, the 20s, and then go to Zeke time where he shines inside that 20.
Exactly. That's all it takes, man. I'm just about preservation, letting the guy play. And if he had to rest, which they won't now, because that's what Jerry's talking about. But if you had to, why not? But let's flip the page on something different, man. Okay. Wide receivers and tight ends. All right. So I'll start and I'll pass it off. But in my belief, whoever's not being covered by Marshawn Lattimore, whether that's going to be Gallup, Lamb, they're going to explode. Whoever that guy's going up against a Debo, they're going to explode. How do you feel if they're healthy going into New Orleans? How do you feel they're going to do? And how are you taking the news of Amari Cooper? Just where do you feel with that so far up to this minute? What do you think is happening with Amari? In or out?
I'm probably thinking out. It's almost already Wednesday.
Shit.
So here's what you look for. If he practices tomorrow, he plays Thursday. That's how you look at it. And if he doesn't practice tomorrow or is limited, he's probably not playing. Gut feeling he isn't. But let's just say for the sake of it, let's do it if he is and if he isn't, right? Mm-hmm. If he's playing, Lattimore's on him, right? I believe that, like, that's how that's going to lock down. He might move over to Lamb for certain plays. I don't think he touches Gallup, not very much, unless it's a switch or something, right? So, yeah, I think he stays with Amari and maybe Lamb, depending on what's the play. Without Amari, and if you have Lamb on the outside, because, again, we might be missing Wilson, it looks like, right, with the ankle. So now you're talking, what, Noah would be on the other side? Yeah.
And I'm not buying Simi either. They're not calling up Simi. I don't see it happening.
No, I don't. If they do, he's going to be like your fifth guy or something, or sixth guy or whatever, right? So, yeah, I mean, who do you throw on that? He'd probably go to Lamb. And if they wanted to try to play Lamb underneath and not use Lattimore, then he's going to go with Gallup for the speed.
So, do you think? Because here's my problem, and I think I saw it a little bit last week too, until the game got going later on.
Yeah.
Do you have a guy that beats man coverage? Because that's my one problem. Is that look, if they decide to put Marshawn on either, this is without Amari, by the way, but if it's Marshawn on either guy, Lamb or Gallup, and the
Mm-hmm.
other guys are playing, I need guys to beat man coverage. So no Cedric Wilson, that means Noah Brown. And Noah Brown's not much of a guy that separates across the field. So we need a guy that can do that. I think we have problems if there's no Amari. I think that's a
Yes.
big problem you have.
But then that goes into utilizing your tight end more, right? You have a tight end right now who is pretty darn good, right? So this might be that game, to your point. If that's how they want to play it, this might be the game for the tight ends. This might be that game where they go, okay, we don't have Amari again. We're seeing how they're playing this. We're not getting off this man coverage right. Let's clear out the middle and get the tight ends involved. And I think that's absolutely a possibility.
And this is where I think you miss a guy like Amari Cooper even more, because you want somebody to occupy Malcolm Jenkins. You want that. You want someone to occupy Malcolm Jenkins. Now, if you allow this guy Jenkins to have him and Schultz, it does make it more complicated too, I think. And that's one of the problems I think this team has to figure out. And somebody has to step up. Again, like I keep saying, you can use your tight ends, and I get it, but someone has to be able to take the man coverage and beat it, whether it's Gallup, whether it's Noah Brown, and I'm not sure about that one. Maybe Malik Turner. I don't know, man, but that's my concern. I think that's a big problem. And I said, like you said, it's probably no Amari. Gut feeling here. It's Tuesday, hasn't practiced yet. Probably won't make the trip, but it's tough, man. It's tough.
Yeah,
Really
luckily
tough.
it's a close flight. Jerry could do one of those little private deals in the last minute. But
I was
yeah,
thinking that, but nah.
yeah, but yeah, if he's not there at all tomorrow, or if he's very limited, just write it. I'm pretty sure he's not going to play.
Well, that sucks. All right, man. But here's the fun part, man.
All right.
Our guy Dak Prescott. So last week on the show, I had our guy Nix. He came through, and I asked him this question. So I ask you also.
Okay.
Do you think right now Dak is under any more pressure to win this game after they've lost 2 straight?
A really good question. So do I think he's under pressure? Man, no, but not because it isn't there. I think Dak's just that guy that doesn't feel pressure the same way a lot of people do. Right. So, I think he feels pressure, but man, somebody like you or me under that same pressure of, we might crack, right? He's very stoic in the way he handles his pressure. So I think it's there. I just don't know if he feels it the way we all think he feels it. I guess the best way to say it, right?
Yeah.
And he truly believes in this team, and so when you do that, you tend not to have that moment of, I have to do this, right? Like, you have to believe we are going to do this at some point. You know what I mean? So, and he's that guy. He's the guy who's going to say, we, not I, So, yeah, I think there's stress and I think there's some pressure, but I don't think necessarily it's affecting him as much as some will think it is or isn't. But I also think they really, really, really want to win this game.
So I've thought about it for a second, and I'm going to say yes. And the reason why I say yes is that everyone can point out the slow starts. And if I'm being fair, we talk about, I complained about early runs, like, first down runs, second down runs. I complain about that. But remember, Dak is the quarterback. You have the power to check out that run if you want to. So it's on you. It's really on your watch.
Oh, yeah, he makes some, you hear him kill, and he's killing some plays. You hear it.
Why not more? It's like, why not more? And I think in the first month, he was incredible the first month. He was in complete command, and you could just feel what he was seeing and how he was playing the game at the line before the snap. I haven't seen it in the last coming weeks. And again, I'm seeing a lot of handoff to Zeke running into Zach Martin's back. I'm seeing a lot of that. Again, and I'm not here trying to slide him. I'm not. I'm just saying that if he's a leader, he's accountable, take it into your own hands. The team is having these slow starts, take control of that. And Dak will tell you himself. He says, pressure is privilege. And I can't agree more. Mm-hmm. But, we have to kind of see this team step on this team's throat. You have to. It's a team you're playing against that is not really good offensively. The quarterback isn't great. And for a lot of these games going forward, a lot of the quarterbacks are not good. You
Right.
have to squash this team as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Smash them quick.
Yeah.
Quick.
Oh, they're desperate for this win. Make no mistake, they're desperate for this win.
So now, man, before we get into predictions and wrap the show, I'll have to ask you this question, right? And this is a big picture question. If they lose this game, what does that mean for them to lose this game? And if they lose the game, what changes do you make, and who has to pay the price if they were to lose this game?
So luckily, not much changes. I mean, you have a pretty sizable lead, and you still look better than all of the teams you have to play in the next coming weeks, right? The Eagles, the Giants, the Redskins. So like you have a chance to still run away with your division. So I'm not saying it's like a worry, right off the bat. What changes? I think they have to figure out now, especially missing Brent Urban, what that defensive line is going to look like and how they're going to use it better. That's the first change is I have to figure out that defensive line. Once I figure that out, blocking schemes, I got to readjust this. Now you have Tyron back. It looks like Lyle might be taking over, but I'd still be working on those. Those would be my two things immediately I have to change.
Okay, so I'm bagging on Anthony Brown a lot, but it's only right. If they go lose this game, it's going to be because they're not playing well, covering people in the secondary. It's just the way it is, man. It seems like the Saints are going to have to throw the ball down the field on the Cowboys, and Taysom Hill likes to take his vertical shots. So I'm saying if they lose this game, it's going to be based on them not playing the deep pass well or just not playing discipline once again. So I think if they lose the game, you guys are talking about CB 2 and 3, whether it's Jordan Lewis, whether it's Anthony Brown. You guys start working in your guy you took in the second round. So Kelvin Joseph, if you got to incorporate him more, I don't know what deals with Kennedy, where he's at, if he's still on IR, but I think you have to start working in somebody else at corner. If they lose the game by way of the pass, like it's a team you shouldn't lose that way. You got to do it that way. I think you have to change something at corner. That's just me, how I'm looking at it right now.
I kind of don't disagree with you, but I also don't know what I have in Joseph, right? Like none of us really know what we have in him. None of us have really seen him, right? So we know what we hope we see of him, but we just don't. Wright, of course, is out right now. Now that leaves you Brown and Lewis. So you're essentially just showing the same picture, just flipping it, right? Like that's you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you can switch it up, but if Joseph isn't who we think he is yet, or he really isn't ready to play yet, then all you're doing is just flipping the same picture. You're just looking at it in reverse. You know what I mean?
Do you remember this thing way back in the day? You remember when they had Skandrick and was it Jenkins?
Yeah,
Mike Jenkins.
Yep.
And they swapped games back and forth.
Yeah.
Look, man. This team's at this point where they want to make guys earn it one way or another.
Correct.
I took you in the second round. If you are a cap space junior, Stephen Jones, I don't see why you can't have games or even series where you play a little bit of Kelvin Joseph. I don't see why you can't do it. Why not?
Again, I don't know what he looks like. Like I'm not defending the move because I'd probably have played him earlier than this personally, if you're asking what I would do as the coach. But like the thought process also might be like maybe he really isn't there yet, right? And what they're hoping is one full year, okay, Brown, you're out the door, and now he's ready to step right in and play, right? So that might be their thought process. I hate that thought process, much like we were talking about in the very beginning, because it's a coward's way out, Stephen Jones. But that's a real possibility of the line of thinking. I would play him. I would sprinkle him in. I would put him in advantageous positions to use his skills versus Brown's, right? Like, oh, I need you to come across the middle and Brown doesn't do it, or whatever that might be. Use him for what he's strong at, right? But I don't know if they do it because I don't know how they really feel about him, unfortunately. But you're right. They should be playing him somehow.
It's just making me think, like I said, like if you play the game, you lose and you have 10 days off, why not try to see what you got? Work him in some capacity. Like you said, maybe it should have happened a while ago. Should have been happening, week 4 or 5 and whatever the case was. But I just feel like if you're going to lose this game, and that's probably the way you're going to lose the game, it has to mean something to address it. Plus, the guy had 4 penalties last week. and one that really cost you the game. I don't care if it was close or not. You're still being put in that spot. Maybe by your head coach. I'm sorry, by your DC. I get it. I get
Mhm.
it. But still, it's like you got to fix this in some capacity. You have to make something different because you can't lose 3 in a row and think it's all sweet. And then all of a sudden you play Washington on the road. I don't know, man.
I do think fixing the defensive line will help a little bit, right? If they can get a consistent pass rush, which, let's be honest, since both of our guys have been out, has been not that outside of a guy named Micah Parsons, right? Like everybody else was kind of like, oh, he got a sack. Cool. Where is he the rest of the game? So I think if they can fix that up, it will help the back end a little bit. You know, a half second is a huge difference in coverage, right? Whenever I look at a cornerback coming out of college for the draft, it's one of the things I look at, right? So that half second is sometimes all enough, right? Can a cornerback cover that far? You know, can a blind block that long? You know, whatever that might be. So fixing the defensive line, I think at the end would help the secondary, which also might give you the opportunity to play more right because you can take more chances with a consistent pass rush.
Okay. Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Well, look, let's hope we get some changes at some point.
Something has to change because at the end I don't even have to agree or disagree with anybody on what changes. Something has to change though, because they've lost 3 or 4.
Agreed. So, man, before I get you out of here, I want you to pick a player of the game, one on offense and one on defense. So, who you got?
All right, so we're going to go on defense, and I'm going to say Jaron Kearse. You know, we were talking about
numbers.
So here's why I'm saying that. We're talking about Hill wanting to take shots, right? I think if you do that and Brown is struggling a little bit, you're going to shade Kearse. We were talking about their wide receivers are not all that, right? So I think him on defense is going to be the guy that you're going to see step in, fill some of that linebacker, you know, come down, crash the line, because he can do that. But he can also play in that coverage over the top on some of these weaker wide receivers. So I think Kearse, he might walk away with an interception this week. I'm feeling. And he may even get a tackle for loss out here too. But I think he's going to be a player to watch, right? I think he's going to be a big key for this. On offense, I'm actually going to go with Schultz. I not because I don't think CD might have a great game, or I don't, you know, I think they're going to be able to pull this off, and I think CD will have a great game. But I think it's going to be the use of Schultz in certain situations that's going to be really key for the changes this offense needs to make. And so he's going to make some big first downs, probably a touchdown over the middle, but he's going to help try to open up the rest of this game. Yep.
I like it, though. I like it. Now they kept it consistent there with the tight ends.
Hey, man, gotta do what you gotta do.
I got you. Some dirty work. Offense, I'm gonna go and just say with Pollard. I think really with them, he has to be more involved in the passing game. And I think like I said before, they're gonna want to pass the ball on early downs, kind of get ahead of the chains, move the ball kind of methodically a little bit through the air. I'm saying 6 catches, 80 yards, maybe a touchdown, maybe a handoff or something like that. At first, I wanted to say Trayvon Diggs too, because I think, you know, throwing with Taysom Hill, throwing deep, he's kind of floated out there. But I kind of want to say Tank Lawrence. I mean, if they don't have Ryan Ramczyk back, then you got Alex Hurst playing right tackle. I like the thought of getting Tank back in the game, maybe a sack and a half, kind of get some pressure and kind of, you know, seeing what we've missed for so long. I'm going to go with Tank Lawrence there, man. But before we wrap, man, give me a score for this game.
Man, so I think it's going to be closer early. So it'll be something like 17-10 going into half, something crazy like that. 2010, you know, but I think the Cowboys will roll away with it by the end. Their offense is just going to take over. And I think the Saints offense is what's going to fail them. So I think by the end, it's going to be something like 30 to 20, somewhere right in there. I think the Cowboys will actually walk away at 30 to 20.
All right, man. I'm liking a pretty decisive game too. Whether they have Kamara back or not, I don't think it makes a difference. I think because I actually do think somehow by a miracle, some way, Cooper comes out and plays. I'm just gonna say I think he plays. I'm hoping that he does. Maybe more in my heart than my head. So I'm going 27-10. I think they just kind of handle them early. They figure out what they're doing with Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian, and they handle it from there. I think they win pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
We'll see, man. We'll see. If not, man, we'll be pissed online. So, but
I'm turning the phone off Friday. Don't even don't bother me. I'll be nope. Not doing
no calls, no texts, no emails, nothing.
No, I'm just Friday. I'm done. That's it.
Put on my out of the office email.
Yep. Oh, don't think I won't. No.
All right, man. Well, yo, dude, it was a pleasure having you on, man. But before we get out of here,
pleasure, man.
Tell us, how can we find you on Twitter, the podcast, and anywhere else? I know you were fan-sided as well. Tell them all your outlets, man, so we can find you.
Goodness. So 4D podcast on Twitter. I'm at Dan_Rupert, RUPPERT. My co-host over there, who couldn't be here tonight, Joseph Massey, is at the JA Massey. So you can find him over there. You can also find me on Fansided at SportDFW. And I do, I cover the Cowboys and the draft for them throughout the year. So.
Hey guys, and once again, make sure to follow these guys on Twitter. J.A. Massey, we missed you tonight, but hopefully I'll get you on next time. Massey, for listening. Dan, man, great guest to have on. Thank you for coming through, as always.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. So does Cowboys Nation. We appreciate you right back. And guys, if you love this video, hit that like, hit that sub button for more videos just like this one. For my guest, Dan Rupert of the 4D podcast, I'm LP Cruz, and thanks for watching. As always, Cowboys up. Peace. Thank you.